Okay, AJ Washleski's interview with Al Panner for History of Sports final project. Um, First of all, thanks for doing this with me. And then I guess we'll just begin. What role have sports played throughout your life?
A big role. From my earliest days, I can remember, being a sports fan. So my first memories of sporting teams were the Tigers. When I was probably about 8 years old, so that would have been the early '70s. Al Kaline was the first player that I remember, and I remember watching the Tigers through the '70s and the '80s, and when they won the World Series in '84 and all that. So that was, and as I went on, I kind of added on, interest in the Lions, and I watched the Pistons, whole thing, and the Red Wings, and all that kind of stuff. So, that whole thing, and was really huge to me. So it all started out for me as a fan, and then as I got older and started to play sports, I started to, get more interested in it from that aspect as well.
Your interest in the Lions grew.
Yeah, I'm one of those idiots that just hopes that the Lions win or even go to the Super Bowl in my lifetime. So I was actually at the one playoff game that they won in 1991.
Really?
I was actually there, and that was one of the coolest games I've ever been to because it was so loud in the Silverdome, and they just absolutely just whipped the Cowboys. And the next year, the Cowboys went on to win the Super Bowl.
That was with Barry Sanders too, right?
It was with Barry Sanders, yeah. Yeah, but that was awesome. They had one, season where they really did pretty darn well, and yeah. So
It was a while ago.
Yeah, it is. That was 25 years ago. So, yeah.
So how did you get into sports? Like, who kind of led you in that direction?
I think it was basically. I mean, in our neighborhood, there were a bunch of guys, and we were all kind of grew up together, and we played together all the time in our neighborhood. We played baseball in the summer, and we played, we went sledding in the wintertime. We played football in the fall. We played basketball. We just played all these sports together. And there was probably a group of us. It was probably, I don't know, 12 to 15 guys that all just lived sort of in the same neighborhood, and we all just met outside, and we all, whoever showed up, that's who we played with, and we just made teams and went. So that was kind of my thing. My parents were never really, all that much into it or anything like that. I kind of picked it up on my own with my friends.
What is so from those your childhood? What's your best? I know we mentioned the playoff win, but what's your best memory of those sports?
There's a couple of them. First of all, the first Tigers game I went to was 1978, and it was at Tiger Stadium, obviously. And Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell were rookies. They were rookies at the time, and I remember going to the game, and being a 12-year-old, I got to go down in the lower deck, and I got to meet Lance Parrish, who was the catcher at the time, and he's just a huge guy, and I just remember getting his autograph and just how big he was. But I remember that game because the Tigers were going into the ninth inning. The bottom of the ninth, they were down 3-2, and Ron LaFleur, who was their leadoff hitter, singled, and he stole second. And Lou Whitaker came up with a man on second base, and he hit a home run to win the game. They won 4-3, and that was awesome. That was awesome. I was walk-off home run in my first Tigers game. That was fabulous. That was really cool.
I've never been to a walk-off.
Yeah.
I would have died to go to the 2006 ALCS game.
Oh yeah.
That's without a doubt.
Maglio. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And the other one, obviously, is the 1980 Olympics with the hockey team, the USA hockey team.
Yeah.
So I was 13 when that happened, and I watched the whole thing. I remember it. I saw it, and it was so cool.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
It's a great movie.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing is when State won the national championship in '79 with Magic Johnson. That was a big deal, too.
It's too bad we couldn't get one last year.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. We got one in 2000, so, yeah.
So, going off of that and changing gears, what is your greatest disappointment disappointment besides the Lions every year?
The Lions just, I mean, that just goes without saying, is the Lions were just horrible. I guess in 1987, the Tigers they traded John Smoltz for who ended up being a Hall of Famer for Doyle Alexander. Doyle Alexander ended up being 10-1 and led them, down the stretch on one of the best comebacks I've ever seen. And they won the division on the last game of the year. Frank Tanana pitched a 1-0 shutout against the Blue Jays, and they won the division and they went to the playoffs. And it was on such a high note. And then they went to the playoffs and they played the Twins in the division series, in the league championship series, and then they lost. And that was just so disappointing to me.
They were actually talking about that yesterday on 97.1.
Yeah.
This, we don't get it out here,
Yep.
which bugs me. But
Yeah.
they were talking about how everyone looks back because they were talking about Megatron and how he retired.
Yeah.
And they mentioned how the topic was like disappointments, and one of them was trading away John Smoltz.
Yeah.
But at the time, who they traded him for
Yeah.
went 10-1 that
Yep.
season, so it worked out and they made the playoffs.
Yep.
Which is what the trade was supposed to do.
Yep.
Obviously, in the long run, it
Right.
didn't work.
What do you want?
yeah.
Hall of Famer, or do you want that division? And yeah, so that was a huge disappointment. And there was the Brett Favre touchdown pass that I was at a playoff game with the Lions, and he threw a touchdown pass to beat the Lions like at the end of the game, and it was horrible. It was at the Silverdome, and he just threw that ball up. It seemed like it went up in the air, and Sterling Sharp was in the end zone all by himself, and it was just horrible.
The Hail Mary?
They lost the game. I think so, pretty much. It was a complete blown coverage.
Like this year?
No, it wasn't.
Well, it's not in the playoffs.
I don't think it was a Hail Mary.
Okay.
I don't think it was a Hail Mary. I think it was a complete blown play. He was all alone in the end zone, and it was unbelievable. From where I could see, I was sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, he's all alone. And Favre just heaved it up there, and nobody was anywhere near. It was like a punt. And he just fielded it in the end zone, and the game was over pretty much, or whatever. It was awful.
So, again, switching topics a little bit, but one of the topics we had for class this year, we talked about the Northwestern University players trying to unionize.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on that, or per se, or whether you agree with it or disagree with it, or do you think college athletes should be paid?
I don't really have a strong opinion on that. I understand that college athletes are, they make money for their institution, and they, but they're also getting a lot. They're getting, a college education. They're getting, room and board, all those kinds of things. I think some of the rules that are placed on them as far as, like summer jobs and all that kind of stuff kind of, puts them in sort of a box where they, there's not much of a way out for them. So, I mean, I can sort of understand it, but then again, I mean, where does it stop? I mean, and who's going to pay for all that?
True.
I mean, I don't know where the money's going to come from, in terms of, paying these kids, but maybe one thing I could support is giving them a little more ability to support themselves. Jobs in the summer, or jobs, during the off season, or, whatever. Give them campus jobs, or, whatever you got to do. Put them to work.
So we've mentioned multiple different sports, kind of gone everything, but if you had to pick one sport, what would be, throughout your lifetime, what would be your favorite?
Baseball.
Baseball?
No question. Yeah, no question. I've been a baseball fan since I was 8 years old, and I've gone in a lot of different ways, and done a lot of things, and been fans of different sports and whatnot, but baseball.
So how has baseball evolved since you became a fan when you were 8 years old?
Well, the players have gotten bigger and faster and stronger, and the competition has gotten higher level because of the and then there was obviously the PED thing in the 90s, and all that and whatnot. But one of the things I really love about baseball is that at its core, it really hasn't changed. It really hasn't. I mean, it's still, at its most basic level, it is the same game. and you can compare the game now to 40 years ago or 80 years ago, and it's still the same game. And I love the tradition that goes with it.
Yeah, I would say baseball for me is probably my biggest. I'm a big fan of baseball,
Yeah.
and one thing that I would just like to ask you for my own sake, with Joey Bats' bat flip last year, and then what Bryce Harper has said this year.
Yeah,
What do you think of the unwritten rules of baseball and
I love them.
getting beamed after you doing that?
I love them. I think that's part of what makes baseball great. Is Rougned Odor punching him in the face. That's fabulous.
He got socked.
Yeah. I mean, you step out of line and you're gonna get drilled. And that's the way it is. So absolutely.
Yeah. So I'd have to agree with Joey Bats' bat flip though. If you're in that, if you put it in context for what was going on in that game,
Yeah.
and then you hit a home run in a moment like that,
Yeah.
I'd do the same thing.
Yeah, but on the other side, I don't blame the other guy for being pissed.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. But that's the way it is. That's the way it is. That's competition. It's fine. If you do something like that, you better be willing to stand up and protect yourself. And he did.
That's true.
He did.
All right, so I guess we'll kind of wrap this up. It's been about 10 minutes, but the final question I have for you is, obviously it's a yes, but just kind of elaborating on it. Do you think sports matter, and then in what ways do you think they matter?
I think they matter a great deal. I mean, I think I think athletes, set a good example for young kids, especially, in terms of, hard work and, what it takes to get to that level. And I also think that it provides, great entertainment for people, and it also, kind of brings together, families and, relatives. And I mean, if it wasn't for sports, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. So, I mean, I think it's important on a lot of levels, and I think that, but on the other hand, I've met people that are like, I don't care about that, it's not important, I got better things to do, and honestly, I feel sorry for people like that, because I've gotten so much out of it in my life that,
It also takes a couple years off your life.
maybe, but it might add a couple years,
Yeah.
in my life, so, so yeah, I absolutely think it's important.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yep.
For doing this for me.
All right, no problem.
So hope you had a good time.
Yeah, that was about the easiest thing.
It's an easy conversation.
It is an easy conversation. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you.
No problem.
All right. Cool. So I told you it'd take about 10 minutes.
All right.